This is a review for PC8, factoring and finding zeros. So number 1, all the equations on this test this week start in standard form. And standard form is y is equal to ax squared plus bx plus c. So the coefficient for the x squared term is a, the coefficient for the x term is b, and the constant here on the right is c. The signs come with them. The next step is to find two numbers that add up to b and multiply to make c. And when we find these numbers, we write them out in intercept form. And for the problems that ask you to factor, this is what your final answer will look like. Y is equal to, parentheses, x plus or minus something, parentheses, and the same thing. Number 4, to find the zeros, we do all those steps and then we keep going. We set each set of parentheses equal to 0 and solve. So in this first problem, we can identify that our c value is a positive 15 and our b value is a positive 8. Looking back at this table for just a moment, when c and b are both positive, our factors are going to both be positive as well. So if we look through our factors of 15, 15 times 1, those don't add up to 8. 2 does not have an even number factor for 15. 3 does, 3 times 5. And if you add these together, 5 plus 3, we get 8. When we multiply them, you get 15. That's what factoring is. How do you write your answer, though? We write it like this. Y is equal to x plus 5 times x plus 3. And we're done. For this next problem, our c value is negative 12 to be precise. If we look back at our chart here, when c is negative, then our factors, there's going to be one positive and one negative every single time. And our sum could be positive or negative. So let's look at some options for 12, or negative 12. Possible factors include 12 times negative 1, negative 12 times 1, 6 times negative 2, negative 6 times 2, and I could keep going, listing all the possible factors of 12, and according to my chart, one had to be positive, one had to be negative. Which one of these, though, when you add them together, which pair of factors, gives you negative 4? If you said 6 plus a negative 2, you'd be wrong. If you said negative 6 plus 2, you'd be right. These are the factors. How do we write our answer? We write it in the intercept form. Y is equal to x minus 6 times x plus 2. The third case is when c is positive and b is negative. If we go back to our table, that represents this row right here. And in this situation, both of our factors are going to turn out negative. So if I consider the different factors of 7, and it's a prime number, so there's only the one set, negative 7 times a negative 1, do these two numbers add up to give me negative 8? Yes, it works for both. So we have found our answer. How do we write it? X minus 7, x minus 1, and we're done. This next problem is the first one that says to find the zeros instead of factoring. So we're going to use that same table to identify that with a positive b and a positive c, both our factors will be positive. And we look at options like 10 times 1 or 5 times 2, and which one of these factors of 10, which pair of factors, add up to 7? Well, it's 5 plus 2. So we can put it in intercept form as x plus 5 and x plus 2. But we're not done. We have factored this equation, but we haven't found the zeros. And all you have to do is set each set of parentheses equal to 0. So x plus 5 is equal to 0, and x plus 2 is equal to 0. These are both one-step equations. So our zeros are at negative 5 and negative 2. Back to factoring for the next problem, and we see because c is negative, one of our factors is going to be positive, the other negative. So if we consider some options, 18 times negative 1, negative 18 times 1, 9 times negative 2, negative 9 times 2. 6 times negative 3, negative 6 times 3. Which one of these will add up to negative 3? 18 plus a negative 1, nope, 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 nope. It's this last one. When we add those two numbers together, we get negative 3. So we convert this to intercept form, x minus 6, x plus 3, and we're done, because it did not ask for the zeros. The next one, we start with a c value that's negative, so we know our factors are going to be split, one positive, one negative. And I see that my b value is very, very low, so I know I'm going to be looking for two numbers that are kind of close together. So something like 42 and negative 1, it's going to be way off, not even close. If I remember the factors of 42 and I go through all the options, I'll eventually land on either negative 7 and 6 or 7 and negative 6. Which one of these adds up to negative 1? It's this one. The negative number is larger, so there is our intercept form. We have factored it. On to the back. This is the first problem, that our a value is greater than 1. We can't use this technique until we change that. So we're actually going to divide all three terms by whatever's in front of x squared. And when we rewrite the problem, we get y is equal to x squared plus 3x plus 2. Then it's just like before. This one wants us to find the zeros, so we go through the factor process. It turns out 2 times 1 and 2 plus 1 give us the correct numbers there. So I can rewrite that as y is equal to x plus 2 and x plus 1, and I set these both equal to 0. If I subtract 2 from both sides and I subtract 1 from both sides, I get my two zeros. Zeros are negative 2 and negative 1. This one here on the right, a is back to being 1, so I don't need that extra step of division. I consider factors of 36. I could try everything from 36 times 1, 18 times 2, 12 times 3, 9 times 4, or 6 times 6. Which one of these adds up to 12? Well, 6 times 6 does. So that tells me I can rewrite this as y is equal to x plus 6 times x plus 6. And if I wanted to be fancy, I could write this as x plus 6 squared, because these two sets of parentheses are identical. They want to find the zeros, though. So we can solve both of these, but they're going to give us the same answer. When we take x plus 6 is equal to 0, and we subtract 6 from both sides, we get x is equal to negative 6, and that's our 0. The next one, you have to divide by your a value. So we end up with y is equal to x squared plus 10x plus 16. If we consider factors of 16, 16 times 1, 8 times 2, 4 times 4, which one of these pairs adds up to 10? It's the middle one. So I can rewrite that as x plus 8 times x plus 2. And I'm done. A does not immediately start off as 1, so we divide by whatever is there. So we're going to divide all three terms by 5. Pay attention to the negatives. We end up with y is equal to x squared minus 4x minus 32. With a c value that's negative, I know that one of my factors is going to be positive, the other negative. So if I flip through some possibilities, for 32, it could be something like 16 times negative 2, or negative 16 times 2, or 8 times negative 4, or negative 8 times 4. And which one of these pairs adds up to negative 4? This one does. So if I rewrite this in intercept form, I get y is equal to x minus 8 times x plus 4. And I'm done. This last one on the left anyway, wants me to find the zeros. So I start by dividing out my a value, and I'm left with y is equal to x squared plus 14x plus 13. Since both b and c are positive, I know both my factors are going to be positive. Turns out that 13 times 1 is 13, and 13 plus 1 is 14. So I can write this in intercept form as x plus 13 times x plus 1. If I set these both equal to 0, x plus 13 is equal to 0 and x plus 1 is equal to 0, I can subtract 13 and subtract 1 from both sides, and I get my two answers, negative 13 and negative 1. Those are the zeros. The last one requires you to divide all three terms by 6. So we're left with y is equal to x squared plus 5x minus 6. With my c value being negative, I know that one factor will be positive and the other negative. So if I consider some factors of 6, I could try something like 6 times negative 1, or negative 6 times 1, or 3 times negative 2, or negative 3 times 2. Which one of these pairs will add up to positive 5? And it turns out that this one does. So to convert this into intercept form, I write it like this: y is equal to x plus 6 times x minus 1. If I want to find my zeros, I set each set of parentheses equal to 0. X plus 6 equals 0. X minus 1 is equal to 0. And I solve these separately. I'm left with x is equal to negative 6, or x is equal to 1. Those are my zeros.